everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Around the Pound. Continuing in this month's series of Around the Pound theme topics, we're going to be looking at Kingdom Keepers once again. This time, Book 3, Disney in Shadow, and Book 4, Power Play. Joining me once again for a look at these two, we have, from the Mole, Chris the Mole.
It's fucking Florida.
Pretty much. And from the Shadow's Maw, Marcus Shadow is here. And he's also representing Anastasia Lazerbeam tonight, who could not be here due to being a little bit too late at night.
Indeed. And we like to affectionately refer to this as Kingdom Hearts 2.5D Remix.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, it's basically Kingdom Hearts 1. I say 1 because 2 onwards the story got good.
Fair enough. Kingdom Hearts 1.5D Remix?
Technically speaking, Chain of Memories on where the story got good.
True, but you mentioned last time that you thought that was only created just ready for the sequel.
Well, I mean, it helped the backstory a lot. I said I felt that it was a good way to try to the handheld. And I said I don't like the gameplay in it, but the story is good. The
story is good.
I know about the story, what happens in there, because I've read it, and I've tried playing some of it, so I'm familiar with the story. It is the same. Anyway. So, we're just basically, if you saw last week, we're going to pick up where we left off. Last time, on Kingdom Keepers, 5 teenagers with attitude were chosen by elderly Disney Imagineer Wayne to become DHIs. Disney host interactives via a technology known as daylight hologram imaging, in which, when they go to sleep, they wake up as holograms inside Disney World in Florida. They live in Florida. And they, as holograms, have the ability to see the Disney characters, heroes and villains alike, who are actually alive, the villains of whom have formed a coalition called the Overtakers, and who are trying to take over the parks and the world.
And I do believe Florida came up last time.
It may have.
Go, Disney Rangers.
This is worse than Disney Rangers.
True.
To be fair, current Power Rangers is worse than Disney Rangers.
I don't know about that. Depends on this.
In all fairness, Disney Rangers gave us Dino Thunder. I rest my case.
Yes, that's what I was on about. I liked Ninja Storm and Dino Thunder. They were pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but then it evens out with Mystic Force.
Better than Overdrive.
It's still better than Turbo, Alien Rangers, or Samurai, all of which were made by the almighty Saban.
True.
You forgot Wild Force.
That was made by Half, and to be fair, that series wasn't entirely bad. There was some good stuff like Merrick's Arc.
True.
Yeah, I like that show. But anyway, back to Kingdom Keepers.
Yes, indeed. So, as I mentioned, the first book we're going to take a look at today is Book 3 of the series, and that is Disney in Shadow.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hi, Marcus.
Exactly. So,
what is this? What is this? Harry Potter and the Chamber of Disney?
Nah. I'm a snake. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
For more jokes relating to that reference, stay tuned for next month. Anyway, moving along. Like I said, in the first book, you might remember the Keepers found out that they were basically tricked into becoming this after they volunteered. They volunteered to be these to have themselves scanned and provide voiceover for these interactive hologram hosts, only to find out that they woke up and became their host tonight and had to fight off evil Overtakers, and that if they got hurt as holograms, their bodies got hurt in real life. They managed to go on a journey to find Walt Disney's original pen, known as the Stonecutter's Quill, and defeated Maleficent at the end of the first book. In the second book, Maleficent managed to get free from her prison cell that was originally under Pirates of the Caribbean and got moved to Cinderella Castle, and retreated into the Animal Kingdom, where the Overtakers got a hold of their own DHI server, meaning the Keepers had to sneak in and move around the park during the day as themselves, because if they fell asleep and went into DHI mode, the Overtakers would be able to control them and render them basically permanently unconscious in what they refer to as Sleeping Beauty Syndrome, by capturing their holograms and operating them to wake up.
And I will say, Marcus,
Mm-hmm.
Is that a really big snake, or is that kid really far away? perspective on that cover is horrible. And what the hell's up with that effect for a hologram? What, they look exactly the same, but they glow blue? At least make them a little transparent. Come on, even Star Wars did that in the 70s.
Yeah, it looks like he's in mid-transport from a Star Trek transporter. So, yeah.
Pretty much.
And I'm going to say that Snake is not big and he is not far away. It's a figment of his imagination.
Yeah, which I'd have to say, this whole book is about imagination, and they've chose like the most unimaginative way of doing a hologram of just, yeah, fuck, we'll just paint on it in blue in Photoshop. There you go.
I can kind of agree with that. The artist kind of isn't that.
Yeah. Wow, way to sum up the story of imagination from the cover. I mean, I know they say don't judge a book by its cover, but how else do you decide which ones to buy? Unless you read the back cover and to see the description and think, oh, that sounds pretty cool. Or look at the cover and think, okay, I may want to purchase this.
But the back cover is still the cover, so if you read the back cover, you're still judging a book by its cover.
Exactly, that's why I'm saying they say that, but yet you judge it by reading the back or looking at the front cover. Either way, that metaphor is completely stupid.
Mm.
And besides, books don't even have covers. They just have a first page on Kindle.
Ha.
Ha.
Anyway. So, and in the second book, like I said, Maleficent retreated to the Animal Kingdom and was able to get a hold of a DHI server and managed to kidnap Jess, the sister but not sister of Amanda, who had been helping the Keepers, who was purified by the light of Finn's hologram, but then got kidnapped because everybody wants her on their side because in her dreams she can see the future.
This would just be a lot easier if we said, watch part 1.
Pretty much. I'm just sorry for those who don't, but yeah. Basically, they fought off the Overtakers again in Animal Kingdom, succeeded in rescuing Jess, and went from there. And at the end of the last book, they found out that their mentor Wayne had disappeared, and that they assumed the Overtakers have kidnapped him, and they must find the Stonecutter's quill again, wherever Wayne hid it, in order to rescue him.
Isn't that what Homer joined?
I was what Homer joined.
Fair enough.
Why do you think Walt Disney had the power to build his empire?
Because he's frozen, and I'm using air quotes because he's not actually frozen, but people do believe that.
That's true. They didn't have that much power in terms of Hollywood. The only person they were able to make a star was Steve Guttenberg.
Yeah.
Let me see how well that turned out.
Yeah. Anyway, so this book picks up where the last one left off. Much like each book, we're going to be moving on to a different Disney facility for this one. This book will primarily take place in both Epcot and the Disney Hollywood Studios a little bit. The next book focusing primarily in Disney Hollywood Studios, which we'll get to. All right, so. Also, the other cool thing about these books is on the inside covers of these, they actually throw codes in there so you can decode the stuff and find out cool information. You go to the website, enter it, and find out secret stuff about the characters, about the next book or whatever. And there's also, the books also has a augmented reality component cover, which means if you hold it up to your computer on the camera, you can see a 3D map overlaid on the book of the world, which is kind of cool. Of the Disney parks, I mean. So that's fun.
Cool.
Yeah. Much like, for example, for something you're more familiar with, Paul, if you get the Nintendo Wii games of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, if you hold up Part 1, there's a holographic Harry on it, and you hold up Part 2, and there's a holographic Voldemort, and if you hold them up together, something awesome happens.
I'm just going to say for the record, Mo would not be familiar with anything of Harry Potter, thank you.
Well,
what I would be more familiar with would be the augmented reality card you get with the 3DS.
Fair enough. Did anybody actually use those, though?
Yes, the second I got a 3DS, first thing I did was put the cards down and try using them for the first time, just because it was in the box. Who wouldn't do that? I was like, yay, this is kind of semi-cool when it works.
So I think it didn't work much.
Not really. Although apparently some of that's due to lighting and also due to the cameras, which have been improved apparently for the new 3DSs, but...
Yes, apparently it worked as well as the actual 3D of the 3DS.
Yes. Which means on to Kingdom Keepers.
Precisely.
Book 3 of shit.
Nah. So, as we pick up where the last book left off, after saving Jess from the Overtakers in the animal kingdom, Wayne went missing. So, using one of Jess's dreams to try and tell them what to do, they start making a plan. Philby, the nerd of the team, hacks into the Disney computer system and is able to add Amanda and Jess as DHI so that they can join them in the adventure. Now, mind you, this is very crudely done. Philby is, of course, not the experts that the Disney Imagineers are, so they're able to sneak into the studio at night, get them scanned, and do some voiceover, but it's limited because they only had time over one night, as opposed to the actual Main 5 DHIs who were scanned and voiced over for over several weeks to make them complete.
Yes, so these holograms look like shit.
Exactly. They generally work, but they're not as high-quality holograms, and the voiceovers don't work quite as well because of the limited amount of words that they recorded for them. So it works to some extent, but not nearly as well as the Keepers themselves do.
That's not high quality.
I know. Nobody said it was.
You just did. It's not as high quality as the others, implying the others are high quality. That's not high quality.
Well, maybe the picture doesn't look high quality, but in the book it's high quality.
But the pictures can.
Have you learned nothing from this series? You're supposed to use your imagination.
Cool. I'm imagining I'm reading a better book.
Ha!
You walked into that one.
Ouch. That's funny, the idea of Mole reading a book. Anyway, moving along.
And I will say, out of the last one we did involving a book, who's the only one here to have read Man in the High Castle? Go.
Touche.
Oh, not you.
Touche. So they're able to add the two of them as DHIs, and by analyzing the pages of Jess's diary, they figure out that Wayne is being held hostage in Epcot. So they find some clues that Wayne had left because Wayne is basically really smart, and he had a feeling he would be captured by the Overtaker, so he left clues behind for them to find a way to rescue him, basically.
Sure, he's basically got Batman intelligence. So I knew they were going to kidnap me in the exact way they did. Cool.
Not necessarily in the exact way, but the fact of the matter is they did kidnap him, and he might have known they were going to be, but in the event that he was kidnapped, he wanted to make sure they had a way to get him back.
Wouldn't it make a lot more sense to just build something in there where if he doesn't enter a code every so many hours, it just beeps and says, hey, he's been kidnapped, instead of leaving clues to waste more time when they're trying to decipher the clues?
Well, it's not about saying that he is kidnapped, it's about finding out where he's being held.
So he puts a tracker in himself. He's invented holograms, or at least knows people who have.
Yes, he puts a tracker in himself, because that's not going to make it 10 times easier for the Overtakers to find him and kidnap him in the first place.
But I thought you said they existed on a different plane of reality, and thus couldn't help interfere with the holograms.
Like I said, the continuity on that aspect is not that good. Like I said, the Overtakers, like I said, it's demonstrated the Overtakers, at least the powerful ones, the powerful main villains, do have the abilities to manipulate things in the real world. You know, we see Maleficent sit in a car, we see Cruella de Vil use a telephone later, stuff like that. So they can do things in the real world, and the idea is that the Overtakers, they may not be able to necessarily, do a lot of craziness, but the main Overtakers can, influence the real world, and they can, they interact with technology and things, and the idea is the Overtakers are everywhere, so they got to be extra secure, because any clue or anything they leave, the Overtakers might find and use against them. That's why he's so secretive about this shit.
I would make a case of GPS stuff like tracking in him, or anything to do with trackers that they could look after themselves computerized. Okay, they drove a car and they used a phone. That doesn't mean they're the world's greatest computer hackers.
He's got a point.
True, I'm just saying, he was concerned. I don't know. Anyway, getting back to this. So they find the clues and it leads them to the Norway section of Epcot. If you're not familiar with Epcot, it's got a whole bunch of different areas that are based out of different countries of the world. And they start looking for a sword that is described in the clues. And they discover that a lot of Overtakers are guarding Epcot now, including Gigabyte, the giant python from the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience ride. Because as has been displayed previously, in addition to the Overtakers themselves, they can bring animatronics and other such things to life to work for them in the parks. They also have to deal with crash test dummies from the test track ride and the Vikings from Maelstrom. All of which are rides in Epcot, the few that there are.
No, they can't fuck with crash test dummies. It's Buster.
Thought I was the only one that remembered that series.
It's still going.
I think we're thinking about a different series then. Fair enough.
I was about Mythbusters who constantly use a crash test dummy and named him Buster.
Oh, that guy. Okay, fair enough. I thought you were talking about that cartoon show Crash Test Dummies that was on when I was a kid.
Oh, well, they used to have the toys as well, where you used to be able to crash them in, and like they used to have like a Game Boy game and all this stuff.
Yeah,
and
that just would
just
explode.
died out.
Yeah, it was great.
It just died out of nowhere. What the fuck?
Yeah.
It did. Because I had the car and some of the dummies I used to. Because I had that car and I had my turtle van and I played with them together because that was all I had.
Well, the still thing is, a lot of the shows of that era and slightly before, like during when I was growing up, a lot of those just died out of nowhere for no reason. It's kind of weird.
I mean, if you ask somebody outside of our generation who or what the Street Sharks are, they're not going to know that either.
Street Sharks.
Well, logically, that's when the hockey team at the Sharks play on the street.
Mm-hmm. or if you go up and you ask them about, say, the Golden Alien mask in the Mighty Ducks, they're going to look at you crazy like, did Emilio Estevez have that?
Yep. And who remembers when Polly Pocket could fit in pockets?
Back to horribly written.
Yes, we'll do more nostalgia later. Back to the keepers. In retrospect, Simon's right. We go on too many tangents in these videos. Hi, Simon.
I think that's what makes the videos fun, though. As long as we don't go too far off tangent, and we're doing a pretty good job keeping each other on track here. So.
And I'd make the case our tangents are good because if we go off on tangents on this, it's just you telling us what happens in a book.
True. So after retrieving the sword, which they found in the Maelstrom ride with the Vikings, they're trying to figure out if they have the right clue, and then they discover a fly that's on the sword, and they do more research and they follow clues. It's like the Da Vinci Code. They choose to split up to check out the rides in Epcot that have flying things in them, realizing that it's something to do with flying is where he was trying to lead them. So Maybeck and Charlene go through the ride that is, I believe it is the Soarin' ride, if I'm not mistaken. And only Charlene and Maybeck go through this, only they could go because when you're in DHI form, obviously you're a hologram and you weigh a lot less. And because they were the two tallest of the group, they had the most weight and were therefore able to trigger the ride because the ride has to detect weight to operate.
How did he know where they'd keep him?
What's that?
How did he know where they'd kidnap him and take him to?
Well, not necessarily, but if they could follow the clues, they could at least follow the end of the clues and say, this is a thing to save me, regardless of where they're actually keeping him. I think it's the premise here.
Oh, so he was actually leading them to where he is, but leading them to something that they could use to help save him.
Exactly. I think they're leading him back to the Stonecutter's quill, if I'm not mistaken.
Which that bit would make a little bit of sense. Although it was the way he would described it first, like Marcus seems to think as well. It sounded like he was leading them to where he was. And I was like, how did he know where he was?
No, I think he was trying to lead them back, provide them information, and lead them back to the Stonecutter's quill, because that's what they need to keep out of the hands of the Overtakers, because that's the primary weapon against them, and they would want to get that. So that
although I would say if that's the case, and they're in Epcot, and that's where they took him, how did he know to hide the Stonecutter's quill in the place where they were going to take him so they could use it against him to save him? That kind of doesn't make sense.
Well, that's where the clues are, but nobody said that the item is going to be there. The end of the clues could say, go to Magic Kingdom and get it here. No.
Then why wouldn't the clues just send them to Magic Kingdom? Duh!
Because if the Overtakers found a couple of clues, they might not be able to solve all the clues, and the first few would lead them in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I said, do these, Jim, since you know, do the clues lead them to another place, or is it in the same place?
I'm trying to remember. I think it does. I think that's why they end up going to Hollywood Studios. I think it leads over there. Like I said, it's been a while since I read these books. Let's continue. We'll get there. So, after checking out the thing, they find the message. basically said the answer is the clue says the answer is keeping the rain off. It's on your brain. It's where the stars never grow old. And they realize that he's referring to Hollywood Studios, which, okay, there we go. He's referring to Hollywood Studios because if you're familiar with Disney Hollywood Studios, not anymore because they're in the process, I think, of taking it down, but there's a giant Mickey Sorcerer hat right in the front door, right over the top of everything. So it goes on it's on your brain because it's on your head. It keeps the rain off because people tend to huddle under there when it starts raining in the park, and it's where the stars never grow old because it's a Hollywood studio. The stars there on film, they're always young.
Until they do inevitable sequels.
Exactly. So they go to Hollywood. So all of a sudden, Jess gets a vision that Wayne was being kept at Wonders of Life, an attraction area that's inside a pavilion, and they see a lot of Overtakers guarding it. So Charlene distracts them, and they manage to get in, and Philby went to a control room to try to get them some eyes on the situation, while Finn and Maybach snuck through an air vent, and the other girls went to help Charlene. They're able to get inside and find Wayne through a path that tied up, and they try to free him, but then they realize it was a trap, and he wasn't actually there. And
so much for premonition.
Then they get attacked by a lion and some trolls. But since Philby was watching what was going on from the control center, he was able to get everybody out by turning on the sprinklers, which distracted everybody, and they were able to run away.
And when you say trolls, do you mean actual trolls or internet trolls because they're using computers?
No, I think they're actual trolls at one of the pavilions in the park somewhere, I think.
I was kidding. It was obviously going to be actual trolls. I don't think they'd be chased by internet trolls going la 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 after people. That would be the worst story ever.
You know, Jim, I didn't think it'd be possible for someone to create a worse clairvoyant than Professor Trelawney, but this guy did it.
It's very easy to create a worse clairvoyant than Professor Trelawney. Professor Trelawney predicted two of the most major events in wizarding history. Lest you forget.
Yeah, her predictions are accurate, but she can't control them. Whereas with this character, she can kind of control them because all she has to do is go to sleep. But they're fucking wrong! What? How can you go into the clairvoyant when it's fucking wrong?
No, her, like I said, Jess had this flash where she saw Wayne tied up, but I think, like I said, having Jess on their side, the Overtakers understand her abilities. So, knowing that, they were able to basically, knowing that knowing that how she sees the future, they were able to manipulate that by putting up a fake thing that matched some of the stuff, and because she dreams in that as the picture, so they were able to put up a fake thing matching the picture that kind of caused the flash because it matched part of the picture, but it wasn't a real thing. Her premonition, everything on the pictures is accurate. Her predictions are accurate. It's just in this case, the Overtakers manipulated the accuracy into something that was not accurate. Her prediction ended up being accurate with where he actually was, but in this case, it ended up being fake. I think what ended up happening is Wayne was there, but when they got there, he was already gone, and there was a fake in his place. But the real Wayne was there, they figure out at one point.
Fair enough.
So they returned to it. They had chosen a gift shop as their meeting point, and they got separated. So they meet back there, and Finn realizes they got a big problem because remember how they had that little handheld remote that they could push the button to get back to their bodies?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that thing? Yeah. Yeah, dipshit Finn left it lying around, and park security found it and locked it in a safe.
Oh, that's great.
So,
an unknown device left in the middle of the park, and they just took it and locked it in a safe. This book was clearly before 9/11 and the terrorist attacks, because logically they would have blown that shit up.
Well, no, like I said, it is a tiny little. It's a key fob. It's a little keychain with. It looks like car keys. Somebody lost their keys at the park. Yeah, we're gonna put them in the safe and the lost and found. If anybody comes to claim, we'll give them their keys back. So they put the keys in the lost and found with the keys in the safe. So basically they have to in the lock. Well, it's not a safe. It's a lock cabinet. So they know that they can't get back until 7 o'clock because there's not going to be anybody in the park that can unlock that cabinet until 7 o'clock. That's a.m., mind you. So they decided that seeing as they're stuck here till 7 o'clock when somebody comes to unlock the cabinet so they can get the key fob out anyway, they might as well give this another shot to try to find Wayne while they're here. Because normally they go back to bed by a certain amount. They go back to their bodies in a certain amount of time so they can actually get some real sleep so they can actually function during the day. But in this case, they're like, fuck it, let's keep going. We're stuck here anyway.
Couldn't they easily get the key out?
Their hand can go. Their hand can go through the safe, but they have no way to pull the thing back through the solid wall.
I thought in the last story, one of the characters managed to phase himself perfectly through a wall, grab someone else, and bring him all the way through with him.
He was able to phase through the wall to find the person that was trapped in there. And I'm trying to remember exactly how. I think he phased through the wall. He was able to solidify part of his hand enough to turn the knob to unlock the door, or to do something with the door to unlock it. But they can't physically pull when they're in hologram forms. They can go through walls if they can go full on light, but they can't pull other shit through it. He just managed to get the door.
So he could walk through the door and manipulate his hand to open the drawer and get the key fob thing out.
Theoretically, like I said, I'm not sure. The door thing, they found her in there, and they figured out a way to get the door open. I can't remember if he opened it or what happened there. I don't remember. But anyway, it doesn't work that way. You can't pull solid shit through walls.
Which makes sense, because you'd have to have the ability to take something solid and turn it into a hologram, which they don't have that ability to do.
No,
Right.
But like I said, they could always do the other one of go inside and manipulate themselves to be solid and then open it that way.
Yeah, there's some reason why they can't do that. They explain a reason why they can't do that. I don't remember exactly what it is.
Oh, okay.
Convenience.
Yeah.
And awkward silence.
Yeah, and mind you, in the books, this is a lot more detailed and a lot more fun. The other thing that they don't actually mention on here, which kind of surprises me, you would think they would have mentioned this. So failure, whoever wrote this frickin' summary.
It's almost like it's not the same as reading the whole thing.
I know, but I can't just sit here and read the whole book. That would take hours.
You're doing it anyway.
Not really. But one other thing, that they actually meet a woman called Wanda. Originally, who tries to help them in this situation, and helps them figure clues and gets them into the park and does what she can to help them out. And she explained they don't necessarily trust her at first or believe her, because obviously overtakers are everywhere. But she proves to them that she's actually Wayne's daughter, and so he entrusted her with some of the knowledge that he has of the Disney stuff, so that somebody knew what was going on. So she shows up to try to help them out. So she kind of temporarily takes over as mentor while Wayne is otherwise kidnapped. Although she obviously does not have the resources Wayne does. Yeah, she has keys to a lot of stuff and things, but that's about it.
So a useless female version of the mentor taking over afterwards, does she only speak in questions?
Ha!
Pretty much. Anyway, so that's here. They work their way through here, solving the riddles and trying to figure out what they have to do to get the thing out of here. They start tracking the temperature changes in Epcot, figuring, okay, it's going to be cold where Maleficent is, we'll find her that way, the usual stuff that they've been using to track overtakers. So at this point, they realize that the icon of the studio is Mickey's giant hat, and they realize that it matches the riddle at this point, since they're standing right by it. They look at it and they figure it out. And they realize that Mickey only wears the hat in the park during the performance of Fantasmic. Mickey usually is wearing his normal red pants, and if you see Mickey walk around in the park, he's got like a black suit jacket and shirt on and his red pants. You don't see Mickey in his Fantasia outfit except for the Fantasmic show.
Makes sense. And I was also going to ask, I just did think of one other thing, Jim.
Yep.
I thought the staff at the park were aware of what's going on.
Some of them.
I felt like all the important ones would have been. So logically, if they took the keys with the device on, shouldn't they have known, oh, this belongs to them because we know about them, and then just gone and handed it to them?
Well, not really, because everyone had to find them. And number two, the thing is, no, they actually constantly have to try to avoid Disney security, because they don't really know who they could trust and who might be being manipulated or working for the overtakers. So, Wayne is the head Imagineer, and there's a limited team of Imagineers that know what's going on. But for the most part, the vast majority of the Disney employees, there's thousands of them, the majority of them don't know about this. They know that these kids were scanned to be the new Disney hosts that walk around the park and give tours, but that's the extent of what they know. They don't know about the whole they become their holograms and shit, because really, who the fuck would believe that?
Logically, the security people should know, because they're going to see all the stuff come to life, like Night at the Museum, for example.
He's got a point.
Well, the majority of the security people, like I said, there's a few night guards, but not a lot of night guards. That's why they operate at night, because there's not very many people in the park.
It's also why they operate at night, because otherwise they'd be called day guards.
I meant the keepers, not the guards. But yeah, most of the Disney employees don't know because they don't know who the Overtakers might be manipulating or using for the purposes. Just like they put Jez under a spell and made her one of their pawns, they could do that to other people without making it obvious. So they don't know who to trust. So Wayne only trust. That's another reason Wayne brought the Keepers in from the outside, because they don't know who the Overtakers might be controlling or using for their nefarious purposes. So that's another reason he brought the Keepers in from the outside to help with this. And he has a few trusted Imagineers that work with him that he knows are on their side. But and a few people that there's a strategically placed people in the park, a couple of whom work for Wayne, like one of the Dapper Dans works for Wayne, stuff like that. But for the most part, the majority of the Disney employees don't fully know what's going on.
Oh, I didn't think everyone would. Like, the person in the shop wouldn't know. However, I made the case I thought all the security guards should know, just because, I'm sorry, how did the security guard miss a giant fucking snake coming alive and leaving its area, or the last book, all the brooms leaving and going to the next area and coming alive? How is the security guard missing all of this when logically they're at least looking at security cameras as well as walking around the park?
Like I said, I don't know how many night guards there actually are. I don't think you really walk around the parks at night. I think they're just in some guard booth somewhere. So
okay,
I'd
be looking at footage of all of this.
Theoretically, like I said, all I know is that Disney security, they tend to run from Disney security a lot because most of the security guards are not in on this. So
that seems dumb, but okay, continue.
Well, security guards are also in the park during the day more than most of the associates. So who knows how many security guards? Not to mention that they have keys and access, they'd be prime targets of the Overtakers to control. So
I know,
you don't want to put that information out there where the Overtakers can get it and know what's going on.
Oh, I didn't mean they had to know everything, Jim. But like I said, if the guy's looking at a security cam, they keep seeing these holograms fighting the attractions, and one of the guys constantly being kidnapped or whatever. Logically, they're going to ask questions. You'd have to at least explain the basic gist to them, not necessarily tell them all the great big secrets, but at least tell them enough.
Fair enough. So, they figure out that Mickey only wears the hat during Fantasmic, and that the two leaders of the Overtakers, Maleficent and Chernabog, have a big role in that particular performance. There's a lot of the Disney villains that show up in that performance, and they realize that Maleficent and Chernabog must be hiding there, taking the place of themselves in the show. Maleficent acting as if she's the cast member who plays Maleficent, and the actual Chernabog replacing the big, statue, fake Chernabog that's on the float that comes out with him on it.
Is that show still going on?
Yeah, the Fantasmic is still regularly run at all the Disney parks around the world. Yes.
I just meant in the books, because I thought the reason none of the heroes were helping out was Mickey's been missing for years. They have a Mickey!
They have a cast member playing Mickey. They don't have the real Mickey.
Oh, this gets confusing fast.
Basically, there is a real version of all the Disney characters. But remember, Disney characters are represented at parks all over the world. That one character can't be at every park. So, in addition to there being the actual characters that you see running around, there's who sometimes play themselves at the attractions and whatnot. There's also cast members who play them at other parks or at other times. It's like Ariel mentions that she's at this one particular attraction in the Magic Kingdom, but that the real Prince Eric is in one of the other parks at one of the other Little Mermaid attractions, and the Prince Eric that works with her is a cast member, and the Ariel that works with him is a cast member.
Okay then. It got confusing fast, because like I said, it seemed like half the time, like, yeah, they're the real characters. No, they're cast. But no, wait, no, we're only going to say there's one version of these characters. But no, but they're casts. But make up your mind, books.
It is make up their mind. There's one real version of every character, but there's also cast members who play those characters in addition to the real version, because every park has to have the characters, and it keeps up the appearance, obviously. So there might be a real Ariel, yes, but she's only in one park. So at every other park, there's going to be a cast member dressed as Ariel playing Ariel in that park.
Okay, but isn't this the park where all the shit happens?
Well, it is the various parks, but remember, there's a half a dozen different actual parks within Walt Disney World, and not all the characters are in the same one.
I know, yes, there's multiple parks. I'm making a case of, logically, at least one of those has to have a Mickey.
No, because like I said, there's only one real Mickey, and the real Mickey went missing because there's only one of each real character. So yeah, there's a lot of cast members that are around playing Mickey, but the real Mickey went missing years ago.
Okay.
Of all the parks, there's only one reel of each character among all the parks. Only one reel.
I know. I'm just saying. I said okay, mainly because okay, I get the idea that there's only one version of the real ones, but it's like, well, how does the real one go missing then, and all this shit? It seems contrived or really convenient.
No, the real Mickey disappeared, and it's explained why when we get to later books. It is explained what happened to Mickey and everything. Because they do need to get him back, obviously, because it's a Disney book. But we'll get there. So they figure out that Maleficent and Chernobog are going to be in the show, and that they need they need to get there and to stop them. That's where they're hiding. So Philby takes control of the control room, and they go around back and distract Chernobog, who would initially appear as a dragon before becoming himself. And Finn got to the stage, but the real Maleficent was on stage, and he had a fight with her, which all the cast members watching thought was part of the show, not realizing that Finn was not his holographic self as part of the show, and that Maleficent wasn't a cast member in a costume. They had a real fight on stage.
So again, they got to see him.
So Maleficent has the power to turn into animals, as is demonstrated. She turns into crows and things. So she turns into a crow or a raven, whatever that one was, and she flies away. And soon after trying to fight Finn off a little bit, she got wounded from the sword. And unfortunately, Philby opened the trap door for Finn, but Maleficent went in instead and escaped. Finn was supposed to escape the stage at that point, but Maleficent fell in the trap door instead and got away. Chernobog was in dragon form. He was about to breathe fire on them, but Wayne suddenly appeared on the top of a wall nearby and told him to surrender and that he couldn't win, which kind of threw them off. But Amanda told him to fight back instead, and he didn't back down. And as the dragon was about to fuse flames, Charlene managed to hit it in the right spot with a prop spear and knock him down. The flames missed everybody except the version of Wayne, who combusted into flames and disappeared. And Chernobog morphed back into himself and was defeated for the time being. And back then, Philby taken the recording from the security camera via flash drive, and they watched it and saw the same thing, that the Wayne they saw was not the real Wayne. It was a DHI of Wayne that the Overtakers created to distract them and try to convince them to surrender. Then they figure out where the real Wayne is, and they go get him. End of book 3. Like I said, there's a lot more detail to it. You have to read the book. A summary just doesn't do it justice. You have to read the book, but that's basically what happens.
So where was Wayne?
I would make the case. No, a summary does do it justice. It's the same thing as when you read Wikipedia about game stories. Right? Unless you're saying that isn't the same thing, and we should never do that again.
So where was Wayne? After all this build-up and stuff, you're not going to tell us where he was?
I'm going to tell you where he was.
He's trying to find in the book.
Yeah, that's part of it.
I can hear him flicking through the pages.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you listening are having as much fun as we.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, basically the other thing that happens is because the keepers are stuck in the park and the key fob, basically their bodies were rendered Sleeping Beauty syndrome while they were stuck in the park. So their parents kind of freaked out and came to try to find them because, obviously this happened to Maybeck once before. So the parents are familiar with exactly what happened, and luckily prior to this, Finn at one point ended up telling his mother that this was all going on, and she initially didn't believe all this crap about it, but after witnessing a couple of events near the end of the book here, she understands that he was telling her the truth, as outrageous as it is, and Finn's mother kind of becomes the parental the parental ally to the kids that helps them cover with the other parents and things, and kind of does what she can and keeps Finn's father at bay.
And Wayne was.
And Wayne was locked in a metal box near the docks, in the near the barges in the. I think it's the river. Where is it? It's the river here somewhere.
Wouldn't he suffocate?
I think there were air holes in it. It's not an airtight box. They ended up. It's this river. Where is this river? The door of a Quonset to open. Oh yeah, it's in the water of the Illuminations ride. It's in the center of Epcot. There's an event called Illuminations where water shoots up into the air and there's all kinds of colored lights. It's a really, really brilliant show. And they realize that he's locked somewhere near the water because in the basically they keep matching. They find one of Wayne's sweatshirts and it smells like the gunpowder. And they realize it matches the fireworks. They go during the Illumination show. It's the only place in Epcot where the where fireworks are, so they realize that they must have hidden him somewhere near there, or he must have been there at some point. And they mentioned that the Earth globe was malfunctioning and flashing, which was something that had been mentioned in one of the clues. So they go over there, and that's when their parents see them and witness them as holograms, and realize that they were telling the truth about waking up as holograms, and that what Finn was saying was the truth. At least Finn's mother realizes it. The others don't really know. But Finn's mother understands, and they manage to go through and they find Wayne in the locked in this a deck box near the docks near the barge, and they manage to get him out of there.
So the clues did lead them to Wayne?
No, the clues led them to the clues effectively led them to Hollywood Studios, where they were able to figure out. I'm trying to remember exactly. It got a little complicated. Wayne was at one point in Hollywood Studios. They had moved him out of there. He was there, and the clues usually led toward there, but he wasn't there anymore. And then they never really realized what they never really figure out at one point. I think I'm trying to remember. I'm getting the books confused in my head.
Sounds like somebody wasn't prepared for this review.
I prepared for the review. I just can't memorize every single thing that happens in the books. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I was going by the fact you mentioned they remembered something in one of the clues, so that's why they went there. That's why I would say those are the clues were to there.
No, they found his sweatshirt. It smelled like fireworks, and so they realized, oh, well, fireworks are only in Illuminations. He must be over there if he's in this park. Because they found his sweatshirt in the room where he was being kept at one point. The one where they tried to fake them out in that room, they found Wayne's actual sweatshirt there, and they realized his Disney sweatshirt that he wears a lot, and they realized that, oh, it smells like gunpowder, so he must be over at this other location.
Fair enough. You think the villains would have manipulated and took that with them?
You would think. I think Wayne did this weird thing, if memory serves, where he basically he used the clues to tell them. I don't remember. You have to read it. I don't remember.
Fair enough.
But they find Wayne and they get him out of there. Charlene motions away from the dock. Finn hurried forward, figured out the carabiner, and removed her from the clasp. He swung open the door, fell to his knees, and felt tears running from his eyes. Wayne, his feet pressed up into his chest, his white hair like a beacon of light was crammed into the small box. He was smiling. "What took you so long?" he said. So Philby was able to use the control of the DHI software that he's now retrieved to keep them from crossing over, in part because their parents were monitoring them, and in part because heads would roll if they went DHI again, and also because they deserved a break. So Finley was able to use his control of the software to keep them from crossing over for a while.
And that's really not a good response. I don't know if you'd agree or not, Marcus, but seeing him, yeah, he can be happy and stuff. Falling to his knees and weeping, that sounds more like he found him dead than alive.
No, it's that. You have to realize it's sort of. Think of it this way. I'll give you an analogy. That's not a good analogy, but it's because Wayne is like their mentor, and they've had a former real attached to him. So the fact that Finn in particular is, Wayne's kind of become almost like a grandfather to him, and so the fact that he opened the door and he actually found him and he was alive, he was so happy that he started crying.
That would make sense. It was the falling to his knees and weeping, because normally falling to your knees and crying is a sad response. Crying with joy, you're normally like, yes, and you go over to hug him or something.
Well, I think he fell to his knees because of the exhaustion of everything they had done, and he was just relieved to have finally found him. He just collapsed and couldn't stand anymore.
Okay, I'll just say it sounded like bad writing. He fell to his knees with tears running down his eyes. It sounds like it's all tied together. That just sounds like bad writing to me.
Okay, well then maybe the author was trying to psych us out and make us think he was dead until the next line. I don't know.
Yeah, which that's not good, because then it's like, wait a minute, why?
Yeah.
That might just be me.
No, I agree.
So school was boring except for lunch. Jess and Amanda get transferred to their school, and Amanda was already there. They transferred Jess in, and basically Amanda explains more about how their powers work. She can do telekinesis and stuff. Explain how her powers kind of work, and basically they there's a thing where the two girls are orphans, and Amanda and Jess are orphans. They live at this home for orphans, and they have to keep sneaking out. And one of the girls agreed to help them on the condition that they helped her to meet Finn, because Finn's a celebrity now. So she brings that on him at the last minute, and he's like, "Oh, great!" But he agrees to do it.
Wouldn't a home for orphans be called an orphanage?
Okay, it's an orphanage, fine. And then the bully shows up again and gets a little argument with him again, and yeah. And basically, Amanda at one point had used her powers to kind of on the DL to kind of knock him across the down at one point. So she, basically Lowski just goes out and threats him like, your girlfriend's always going to be there to protect you, blah blah blah. They left, and basically it all kind of ends there, and Finn and Amanda are kind of starting a relationship, and that's where book 3 ends.
Woo! We're halfway through this.
Neat.
Let's hope Jim's memory gets better.
I hope my memory gets better too. So
let's hope the writing gets better.
The next book in the series is entitled Power Play. If I can find a picture for it here. It's here somewhere.
Power Play.
Power Play. Where's this thing? That one. And where is it? Here we go. There we go.
And again, that's a horrible hologram. They didn't even try to make him transparent.
Who's that in the background?
Looks like Lionel asking for sight beyond sight.
It does, kind of.
Especially with the hilt around that.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Either that or Shredder. So who is it, Jim?
Yeah, who's that? Supposed to be Jim.
Well, take a close look. Can you tell? I mean, it's a Disney villain.
Jafar?
That was my first thought when I first saw that cover, and then I read the book and I realized, no, it's not Jafar.
Then how would we be able to tell? Because we haven't read the book.
Yeah, so who?
Well, now in retrospect, I can see that it's Judge Claude Frollo.
I don't think I know who the fuck that is.
Frollo, he's the villain from Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, I don't really like that film.
Fair enough. But yeah, he's the villain of Hunchback of Notre Dame.
No offense, Marcus. I know you got paid for the doubleless.
For the what?
The doubleness. That's what I'm calling it. Like how they drew that one girl and she became Pocahontas, they drew you and it became Quasi.
Gee, thanks.
I think likeness is the word you're looking for.
Doubleness.
Double man gum.
If you can make up terms like the home for orphans instead of the orphanage, I can make up terms like doubleness.
Fair enough.
So yeah, it's time to show us if your memory is any good. Continue.
Yep.
So book 4 begins.
So book 4 is power play, and book 4 has a little bit more focus on Amanda than some of the previous books. She gets a little more involved as a regular DHI here, and just to an extent too.
When they put the focus of book 1?
Well, Jess just happened to be working for Maleficent. The primary focus was on the Keepers doing their thing, establishing what they were, Finn becoming the leader, and then stopping Maleficent for the first time.
Fair enough. When you told us about number 1, a lot of it seemed to be Amanda and a quote sister, who's not really a sister.
Yeah, Amanda was kind of in the background, helping them here and there. She wasn't really a primary character.
But book 4 begins.
Book 4 begins with basically the kids have not dealt with the Overtaker. The Overtakers haven't been seen in a little while ever since things went down. Or I should say rather, they haven't been seen because their leaders, Maleficent and Chernobog, after that little stunt with the Phantasmic, were both captured and were locked in a high security Disney prison that exists. I can't remember where, but it's somewhere in one of these parks. I
imagine the Disney prison would be inside the Disney Vault, where they always put their DVDs.
Ah, nice. Which is also the only place you can see Aladdin 5. Jafar may need glasses. No reaction to that. Fair enough. So, they're so the two of them have been captured and locked up. Obviously, Chernobog is still in a form of torpor. He's still doesn't have his full power, so he's not as big a threat as he'd be otherwise. And Maleficent, they managed to get her locked up in such a way that she can't use too much of her magic to get out.
Of course, it's fucking Florida. She's weak to heat.
Yeah. So they locked them in the high security Disney prison and keep an eye on them. So the Keepers figure, okay, the leaders are down, so the Overtakers, they don't have any leaders, so really are they going to be able to do anything? We kind of we're okay for now. So they start. One of the things that they end up at one of the Disney parks, and they go to a roller coaster simulator where you can basically it's a virtual reality roller coaster, so you can basically design your own roller coaster ride in the computer and then get in the car and ride your simulated roller coaster you made. It's kind of cool, and that's a real thing, by the way.
I've seen that. That does look pretty cool. And I would say,
so
if they cut to the Disney prison, and if they do we have Pete from Goofy walking up and down talking about the Green Mile?
He should be. He should be. That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing. That would be amazing, but no.
I just had that in my head, and I don't know why. It's Pete, the Green Mile.
So, they are at the roller coaster, and Charlene designs rides for one for herself and one for Amanda and Finn. It's mentioned that I think it's Finn is not a big fan of roller coasters, so he asks for something not too crazy. And Charlene designs the rides and everything. And as they're riding through this the artificial roller coaster simulator, it starts going berserk and overheating and almost catches fire and breaks free and they almost kills them. And
just like the actual Disney rides where a girl lost her arm.
I didn't know that. Fair enough.
Log flume.
Ouch. This is why they
I'm assuming that's not in the book.
The ride.
I assume that's not in the book.
No, that's not in the book. But this is what they tell you to keep your hands and arms inside the ride at all times.
Like the villains don't manipulate her arm to start walking around like Addams Family.
Haha, no.
Okay.
Do.
Anyway, so the roller coaster thing goes nuts and tries to kill them. and they managed to get out of it alive, barely. And they're like, Charlene, what the fuck? And she's like, that's not what I designed for you. That I don't know where the hell that came from. And they check it, and they realize it's been sabotaged. And but they begin to suspect that maybe could Charlene be being used by the Overtakers? What could be going on here? They start to get a little suspicious. So they end up getting a hidden message from Wayne that tells them that they need to he needs to talk to them, and Wayne has fun ways of using everything in Disney to relay messages. Because after being kidnapped, Wayne does not want anybody, even the keepers, to know where he is, lest he get kidnapped again. So Wayne has started hiding and sending messages through a variety of sources that he has access to. In this case, he gets it by manipulating a kid who is doing one of the Disney park the fun things you can do walking around the park. In this case, it's the Kim Possible phone challenge, and in this case, her clue for the challenge, altered by Wayne, was give your phone to the nearest kingdom keeper. So she does, and he talks to Finn for a minute and tells him, "Here's what I need you to do. Here's what's going on." He gives him a little message, and they proceed to move on. And after speaking to Wayne, they determine, or at least in their own mind, they decide that Charlene was programmed this. She must have done this, and that she must be under an evil spell by the evil queen from Snow White, because she has that kind of power. And that a kiss would break the spell, which Maybeck tries but fails.
Regina.
Charlene only gives him. That night, Charlene is unexpectedly crossed over, despite the fact that Philby had their crossover locked out so they wouldn't cross over. Charlene is forcibly crossed over, and Finn and Philby discover this and have to go rescue her, because Philby has an alarm rig to go and wake him up in the real world if anybody but him gets forcibly crossed over as a security precaution.
Well, sure, if anyone gets forcibly crossed over, you just bring in the biggest douche in the universe. He's great with people who've crossed over.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
That was great. Anyway, so Philby manages to kiss her almost unwillingly, and the spell does indeed break. So they confirm that Charlene was in fact under a spell by the evil queen. They were right. So after being kissed and the spell gets broken, they determine that the evil queen, with Maleficent and Chernobyl disposed, the evil queen has taken over as the head of the Overtakers that are not currently imprisoned. Willa is then forcibly crossed over, and while she's crossed over, she almost drowns after trying to get away from some bad guys that are chasing her. But she gets saved by Ariel from The Little Mermaid, the real one. And that's when she finds out that all the characters from Disney movies are in fact real and not cast members, for the most part, at least in some aspects. Like I mentioned, there are cast members that play them in different parks, but there are real ones that are in their places in a lot of the attractions at different parks. They find out that they can't get. They find
Something
out.
seems fishy about this.
Nice. So Willa is forcibly trapped in DHI mode now, but the others find that they cannot get crossed because they cross back to their bodies, and then Willa got forcibly crossed over like the next night. So they realize they go in to save her like they did with Charlene, but somebody has locked Philby out of the DHI computers. He can't cross them over. So Finn, Maybeck, and Philby sneak into the server room at the park in their real forms. They go to the park, and they sneak into the Utilidor. If you don't know what that is, that's the series of tunnels that runs under the park, so that the cast members can move around freely and not, and it's the reason that the characters seem to appear out of nowhere, and also the reason you never see trash being carried around the park.
Yeah, it's basically Jason Voorhees killing tunnels from the Friday the 13th reboot film.
I'll take your word for that.
Yeah, they did that. He had an elaborate series of tunnels underneath everywhere, how he was going, and it was explaining how he kept appearing even though he's really slow. He always kept beating people, so they explained it with a series of tunnels.
Okay, then.
It was a pretty neat idea.
Fair enough. Although, strictly speaking, I would imagine that Jason could easily catch him, considering he's, supernatural and shit.
He is, but he's really slow. He's like Masked Kane when he first debuted.
Ah.
So they did this so he has a reason for how he can catch up to him.
I don't know.
Which I thought that's kind of cool.
That's a clever idea. So, they sneak in to try to reestablish Philby's connection to the server so they can get in and save Willa. And they manage to accomplish this. Finn and Maybeth go in, they rescue Willa. And when they get brought back, they realize the Overtakers must still have some kind of control of the server, the ones that are left and not in prison, and that they must be trying to forcibly cross the Keepers over so they can trap them all in Sleeping Beauty syndrome and therefore get them out of the way. Later on, they figure out that the plan was to try to get the Keepers indisposed long enough for them to free Maleficent and Shurdabong from prison. Specifically, doing this are the Evil Queen from Snow White and Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians. The two of them actually, after that little stunt with the roller coasters, the Evil Queen and Cruella were actually seen there. Of course, they were soon to be cast members, but the Keepers knew otherwise. And the Evil Queen tried to cast a spell on them at one point, and they saw they saw Cruella de Vil basically talking some trash. And after they got away, we see Cruella de Vil pick up a telephone and call somebody. Establishing that Cruella de Vil's purpose of the Overtakers is basically that she's from a movie that is relatively recent and doesn't take place in ancient medieval times, so she actually knows the basics of technology, like how cars and phones and shit work. That's kind of her role with the Overtakers.
Sure, it's not like Disney owns Tron.
I know.
Just had to put that out there.
Feel free.
I'm looking forward to the next series of books in which Maleficent teams up with Loki.
Yep. You would think that
would be.
You would think that in a series all about being basically in a cyber world, you would think Cthulhu would be the go-to villain, because he'd probably be the one that'd be the most effective against the Kingdom Keepers.
Well, the purpose, with the mysticism and the way they're going, the purpose of this is that it's supposed to be focused on the classic Disney characters to some extent or another. There's exceptions to that rule.
Tron is a classic Disney film.
I was about to say, how is Tron not classic?
Classic Disney animated films. I'll put it to you that way. Because we don't see any. Because I said the only exception to that rule that I recall of characters appearing from a
Jack Sparrow.
The Jack Sparrow and another character that appear from Pirates. That's the only exception in the animated rule that I can think of.
Which means if there was exceptions, why doesn't the one that makes the most sense be an exception?
Yeah.
Because these characters are here because rides based upon them exist in the parks. There's no Tron ride.
There is a Tron ride.
Where?
Well, there was at one point. When I was planning to actually go to Disney, I said I went to Universal, it seemed better. But basically, when I was planning to go to Disney one, they had a Tron ride that was basically like a interactive cyber thing, similar to what the Buzz Lightyear one is, where you get to shoot stuff.
Okay, Jim. Then I put to you, if characters from rides are the exception to the rule, then how have the Kingdom Keepers not asked Michael Jackson for help?
Well, Luke Skywalker.
I don't know about Star Tours, but at the time that these particular books came out, that was during the time when Captain EO was shut down. They only brought Captain EO back when Michael Jackson died.
Did it have to be a ride that's currently active?
Yeah, that was kind of the point, is they were the existent rides.
And since there is a Buzz Lightyear one, please tell me Zurg appears. Especially with technology, how did they not go Zurg?
I feel like he might get referenced at one point. I think he might, he's in the background of a scene with a lot of villains. I think, I'm not positive. We'll get there. So the Keepers decide that they're trying to free Maleficent and Shurnabog from their prisons, and the Evil Queen puts a spell on Finn, but Finn was believed that he was in his all-clear, pure light form at the time, and therefore the spell would not affect him. The spell was intended to eventually make Jess unconscious, messes up, because Finn was partially DHI, and Jess was his friend. And Finn was supposed to kiss Jess and make her fall unconscious so that she couldn't have any more she couldn't give them any more future visions to help them out. But Finn being part DHI at the time, the spell didn't take as strong a hold as it would have otherwise, and he was able to control himself enough to kiss Amanda instead of Jess. And also because he wasn't romantically interested in Jess, she was only a friend as opposed to Amanda, so that also helped. So he kisses Amanda, and she falls into a coma. But the spell included the words "reverse the curse," and they know that Sleeping Beauty's sleeping spell was started by being pricked by a spindle. They figure that the spell started with a kiss. It'll probably break if they prick her with a spindle, as opposed to being the other way around in the movie. So the keepers try to get any spindles from Disney things for Amanda, but she doesn't wake up to these. Philby crosses Amanda and Finn over, figuring that Amanda might be asleep, but if he crosses her over, she'll wake up as her hologram form, because her body's already basically asleep, unconscious anyway. That way they can at least talk to her, which does work.
And I also just realised something.
Yeah.
Just back to what we were saying a second ago. There was another exception to the rule.
Okay.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is not a animated series, and the snake was on the cover of the last book. Thank you.
Right. Because he's from the Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves attraction.
I know. You mentioned it was pirates, and you said, and there was another one, but I can't think what it was. I was saying maybe that was the one you couldn't think of. The Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, giant snake on the cover.
That's true. Yeah, it probably was that one. That's a good point. Yeah, I think that's the only. I only can't think of any other exceptions they had for live action. I think that was the only one. Yeah, that was the one. Okay, so, they get back into the park and they actually end up meeting the real Minnie Mouse and the real Pluto. And
why didn't they just take her bow off and boom, they found Mickey?
Ha. Now, of course, Minnie misses Mickey more than all the others, and with Minnie and Pluto, they realize that the Overtakers are having a meeting on Tom Sawyer Island because that place has been abandoned for years ever since they shut that attraction down and never did anything with the island. So they realize the Overtakers are having a meeting. So they go to the meeting at Tom Sawyer Island where they see a wide variety of Disney villains at this meeting, which is, I think Zurg was at this meeting. I can't remember. I don't have the book in front of me to look it up, but I think Zurg might have been in the background of the meeting.
Yay, Zurg!
I think. But they see a wide variety of villains from different Disney movies, including Captain Hook is there, the Skull Guy from the Black Cauldron movie. They go through a long list of Disney villains that they see in there, a wide variety of them, from this end and the other thing. And they realize that the Overtakers must be in there, and then what the Overtakers are planning, their plan through this that they had figured out at this point was that they need to free Maleficent and Chernabog from the prison. And the best way to do that is, if you don't know, the Walt Disney World, the park as a whole, actually has its own power plant to generate electricity for the park. And so the Overtakers gain control of or at least attempt to gain control of the power plant so they can knock the power out and under cover of darkness and no power, free Maleficent and Chernabog. And they managed to succeed in knocking the power out. They gathered all the villains at Tom Sawyer Island, saying that this is the night we're going to break our leaders out, we're going to be whole again, and we're going to take over. And they break in there to. They simply want to break in here because they've split up. Finn and Amanda are trying to get into to find the Overtakers because Finn at this point has kind of gotten past that whole we shouldn't kill Disney villains thing. As much as he wants to honor Wayne and Walt Disney, he doesn't see another way to stop him. So one thing that they have figured out is that the Disney villains have started using DHIs of themselves to avoid themselves getting hurt and to basically make it easier for them to do their thing and get around. So they realize that the DHIs of the Queen and Cruella, as well as a few generic minions, are out at the power plant getting ready to short it out and knock the power out so they can execute their plan. But Cruella and the Queen's bodies are at the Tom Sawyer Fortress guarded by all the other villains. So if they can break in, they can find the bodies, and they can basically murder the Queen and Cruella before they wake up.
Nice. And I did have one thing I was about to say before, but
yeah.
Just because you mentioned he's an exception to the rule, I don't know if Marcus is thinking the same thing, but there needs to be a scene in which Jack Sparrow interacts with Captain Hook. I want to see those two interact, and I don't know why.
That'd be hilarious.
Just because one's a parody of pirates, and the other one's Hook. No, and the other one, But they're two polar opposites of pirates, so it'd be like, I want to see these two interact.
That would be awesome.
Just like I want to see Buzz Lightyear at one point meet Darth Vader, but that'll probably be in the next series.
So,
Zurg and Vader!
So anyway, Minnie and Pluto help them get to the island, and while they're on the island, Amanda's DHI gets pricked with the cotter of the big water wheel on Tom Sawyer's island, which actually breaks the spell. And she regains, because the other thing was that they were able to cross Amanda over in her DHI form, but her powers were limited because her body was indisposed, so she couldn't really use her telekinetic powers. But once the spell's broken, she gets her powers back. Powers can be used in DHI form. Same thing for the Overtakers. That's why the Queen can cast spells and Maleficent can throw fireballs even when they're DHIs.
Does that mean in the next series, if they do with the new attractions that go in there, they could actually include the Venom symbiote as a form of manipulating all these holograms?
That'd be interesting.
I wasn't sure if they were going to include Marvel and stuff, since they're adding new stuff for them to the parks now as they're working on the new books. It makes so much sense.
I have a hold on the next book of the next trilogy, so when I read it, I'll let you know.
Yay.
It should be on. I should have it tomorrow or Tuesday. So, anyway, so moving along, over the course of the events, they realize they're going to engineer the power outage, break the prisoners' doors open, and get Maleficent and Chernobog out. So they use the security cameras, and then what the villains had done is the villains used the security cameras and turned them into DHI projectors to project DHIs of Chernobog and Maleficent in their cells, while the real Maleficent and Chernobog, Maleficent disguised herself and transfigured Chernobog into a dude, and they walked out the front door.
Okay.
So they plan with, even despite the fact they tried this up, they did manage to escape, because at Tom Sawyer Island, they got overwhelmed by the villains because they got caught trying to take out. Because the Queen and Cruella woke up after the power outage, and they got caught and almost killed. And Philby had to manually return them to get them out of there, or they would have gotten killed. So after the two escape, Finn runs to the jail to warn the jailers that it's going to be a prison break, and that Maleficent and Chernobog are sneaking out under the cover of DHIs in their cells, which initially they don't believe them, but then Wayne shows up the fuck out of nowhere and he tells them, no, the kids, and he says this, he's probably right, and they check the security footage and they turn the cameras off and realize that there were DHIs, and they see Maleficent and Chernobog on the camera having walked out of the building and are already gone. And they're like, shit, they got us.
It's okay. Next week, Walt Disney will appear and put on a 3-hour movie with just a broom.
Huh. Is that a reference to something?
Yes, the WWE walkout in which Triple H referred to it the next night if he could just put on a good match with a broom.
Mm-hmm. He could, but he's not counting on Broom's manager, Moppy.
Yeah.
So the book ends with the keepers, Amanda and Jess, and meeting with Ariel, now that they have an ally of the character. And they realize that one of the pictures that Jess had earlier drawn from one of her visions, Ariel recognizes him as this gentleman as Captain Peter Roseman of the Disney Magic cruise ship. And having, due to that being an aquatic attraction, some members of the aquatic Disney had interacted with had been involved in the cruise ship as their characters. And it should also be mentioned at one point here that they also met King Triton at one point in here, just to mention that. I think it was here. It's either here or the next book they meet King Triton. I can't remember, but they meet King Triton, but we'll get there. So they realized that the Disney Magic cruise ship captain was in the vision, and it's also going to be the site of the next place where they're planning on installing the DHI projectors to have the keepers involved. The host as part of the cruise ship tour. They're slowly adding the projectors for the keepers in different parks. It started in Magic Kingdom, and they added them to Epcot, Hollywood Studios, so on and so forth. They've started adding projectors for the keepers around, but there's not projectors everywhere, and if the keepers go outside projector range, they go into what's called a dark area, where they still exist, but they're basically completely invisible and intangible. Because there's nobody to project them, and silent because there's no one to project their voice, so they still exist. Like they exist, but they don't exist. It's kind of weird. But anyway, they're slowly adding projectors everywhere, and the next place is on the cruise line. So Ariel also revealed that here is the point where Ariel reveals that Mickey Mouse is meant to be the character's leader, but he's been missing for years. And as a result, all the characters kind of went into this depression about not being able to work together and help because their leader, mighty leader, was gone, and they couldn't bring themselves to do it anymore. And Finn asks Ariel to keep their return button safe, and she agrees. And then they all return to their bodies to end the book.
Yay.
Yay! So that
Yay.
was book 4. Yay, indeed.
So book 5 is the cruise ship one, yes?
Book 5 is the cruise ship one.
I believe that's the one where they meet King Triton. I believe you did mention that when you were actually reading the book.
Yeah, I know, because I think yeah, you're right. I think you're right because Finn goes to the park to meet King Triton on one of the aquatic attractions, with the agreement that basically Wayne talked to King Triton, and King Triton made an agreement with Wayne that for as long as the keepers were in his domain, aka on the water, he would do whatever he could in his power to keep them safe and protect them and help them. And he gives Finn a special code and says, if you're in trouble, stick your head under water and say this code, and my people will hear you and we will come.
We'll send the crab first.
Yeah, right. we don't see Sebastian, unfortunately. Kind of sad, but we don't.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so that's the end of those 2 books. What did you guys think?
I didn't think it sounded like it's got better.
There's still many, many loopholes. And just not thought out.
Like I said, I think there's a lot less loopholes than it seems. They're explained in the book, but not in the descriptions that I'm using for this. And my memory is not good enough to remember all these little details. So I think in the books, a lot of it is probably better explained than I'm explaining it. There probably is reason behind this.
Yeah, some of it may be explained, but I don't think all of it will be. And it's a case of even the part when you actually read the book, just stuff like he falls to his knees and weeps because he's happy. What? That's not a normal reaction.
Because it's that level of emotion. They thought that Wayne might be dead, that they might have lost their mentor and good friend, and the fact they found him alive, it was overwhelmingly emotional after all they went through.
Yes, but that's not a normal reaction. Dropping to your knees and just weeping like that's normally what they normally do for traumatic stuff for sadness. That was done for happiness, and it just seems weird to me.
Fair enough.
And it also seemed badly worded and written, so I was like, yeah, I know I won't be reading these.
Okay. That's fair.
But like I said, that might just be me. I don't know if how Marcus felt obviously about that scene, but like I said, I was like, ooh. It doesn't sound like a good series.
I can kind of understand where you're coming from with that one, and what you say does make sense. I don't think I hate it as much as you do. I think, like I said, the concept sounds really good. It just, like I said in the previous Around the Pound, it just seems like the author didn't completely think this through, and it doesn't have a lot of logic and common sense behind the concept, which you kind of need.
Oh, I agreed. The concept sounds great. It sounds like a really cool concept. But as I mentioned, it seems like the more Jim reads it and tells us the descriptions and stuff, it just sounds like an advert for Disney Park with the characters being a second thought.
Yeah, kind of. Or like a fanfic, but not a good fanfic.
I could see that as well.
Because it's possible that if we were to actually read the books, it'd be better. Just because it is Jim trying to tell us about this. But like you pointed out, even if it is, it probably wouldn't be that much better than what...
Well, I would encourage everybody, if you have a chance, the first book is pretty short. It's not a very long book. It's like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone sized. Maybe a little bit thicker than that. I would say
another book Mo would avoid.
Well, I would say, yeah, I know. I would say get the first book.
Philosopher's Stone.
Philosopher's Stone, sorry. And I would say get the book, get the first book, give it a read. See if you don't like it after that, fine. You don't have to read the other 6 books, but at least read the short first book. See if it sounds a little more explained, a little bit better than I'm explaining it. At least give it an opportunity before you judge it based on just what I'm saying. That's all I ask. At least read the first few chapters and see if it starts pulling you in and it starts sounding interesting. If it doesn't, fine.
Fair enough.
That's all I ask. So, that was books 3 and 4. For our little preview, next week we're going to be covering book 5, Shell Game. If you can't tell what Disney villain that is, I'm going to smack you.
Well, given the fact that we just said it's on a cruise ship and their primary protagonist is going to be King Triton, yeah, you'd be kind of an idiot not to know who the villain is.
Although, interestingly, she does not appear as much as you might expect in this book. She shows up like once, and that's about it. They put her on the cover because Ursula, but she doesn't really show up that much. I'll confess that cover is kind of a cock tease.
Which is fair enough. Just because she's the main villain for the book doesn't mean she has to actually be there. Some of the best villains are the ones that work behind the scenes, and they're like, Vince McMahon. It was me all along.
Well, that was a horrible twist. I'm sorry, I've mentioned that before now. That was a horrible twist that people always praise. It was me, Austin. Because literally, the week before it, Austin's in the ring, the higher power stands right in front of him, looks him in the eyes, and the next week he doesn't know who the fuck he is. That was a shit. That was shit.
Well, I'm not saying what he did was good, but I'm just saying that concept of, the having the reveal at the end, went down right, obviously. Of the villain doesn't always necessarily have to be there. You just have to feel the villain's presence. And then at the end, it's like, it was me all along.
Yeah, I completely agreed with you until you said, like the Vince McMahon thing, if it was me all along. I was like, no, that was it done badly. That was it done badly, horribly.
True.
And what's the other book, book 6? Or is there not a book 6?
It's that one. It's called Dark Passage.
Oh, so the next 2 books are on the cruise ship. Fair enough.
And is that villain the chick from Tarzan or the? No.
Not from Tarzan.
Okay. I can't recognize her just by the eyes. I was thinking the Queen from the animated series.
I didn't watch a Tarzan animated series.
Ah, fair enough. So who is that?
Marcus, any idea? You want to take a guess?
I don't know. Scheherazade?
Or it could be the voodoo woman from Pirates.
I could see it being Pirates of the Caribbean.
Very good. That's right. It's Tia Dalma from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yay.
The voodoo woman who wasn't necessarily a complete villain in the series, but they used her highly effectively in this series.
I was going to say, if they were going to go with the villain from Pirates, wouldn't they have gone with Jeffrey Rush?
They could have gone with Barbossa, but Barbossa, he wasn't really... Number one...
Davy Jones, because he has command of the seas.
That would have made sense too, but no, they used it. They used her, but it works. It works really well the way they use her. It does work really well. When we start getting on the cruise ships, this is where it actually starts getting a lot more dramatic, a lot darker, and really good.
Well, we'll be the judge of that, but you can tell us that next time.
Yeah, but these are the next 2 books coming up, and we will go through those next week.
Are they the final 2?
Nope. And there's one more video after those, which will have book 7. And if I can get it read in time, if I get it this week, I should have it read in time. The first book of the Kingdom Keepers: The Return trilogy, entitled Disneyland.
Yay!
Indeed. So, with that, thank you 2 for joining me.
You're welcome.
And a pleasure. Still horrible books.
Like I said, give them a chance and read them. They're a lot better when you read them than they are when I tell you about them. I guarantee you this.
I would make the case. This is meant to be a review, and your reviews are there to help guide people's opinions. Thus, if If you're saying the review is completely irrelevant, everything you said, because you should read the book anyway, thus all of these reviews are now rendered pointless.
Considering we have no viewers, aren't all our reviews pointless?
5 people.
Exactly. So, we'll take a look at the next 2 books. Like I said, I do encourage you to give the books a chance. It is a fun series. I'm just giving you a basic idea of some of the events and some of the cool stuff that goes on in the books. But if you want all the little nitty-gritty details that I'm not able to cover here that probably explain things a little bit better than I can, you should give it a chance. We'll cover the next 2 books next time. Thank you 2 for joining me.
So what's your opinion? This is supposed to be a review. You have yet to actually review the books.
Like I said, I really like the adventure. I think it's a lot of fun, the concept of, what goes on in these Disney parks and the characters being real, and given the fact that you're seeing how the Disney characters would be adapted to a real world, how they react in comparison to a real world. And the hologram thing is a little bit out there, but that's a cool way to involve protagonists that the target audience of the novels can relate to. And I think it really works out well the way they, involve the characters and they explain the backstory of how it all fits in with the actual Disney backstory and, ties certain things into the movies and everything else. It's a really neat way to make that all fit in and work. So, like I said, I really enjoyed the series. I think it's a lot of fun. Seeing the Disney characters slowly come in and be more and more involved, seeing the Keepers evolve as characters, and obviously I'm not focusing a lot bit on that. I'm focusing more on plot, but they do evolve quite a bit as characters. Coming into their own, becoming better friends. Overcoming their various, their weaknesses and whatnot. Learning about each other and about their own limitations. Overcoming the adversity of we gotta fight these overtakers, and what a toll that takes on their lives and whatnot. It really does get dramatic and interesting to see. So I do encourage everybody to give the series a chance.
Fair enough.
So with that, we will see you next week for books
5 and 6.
5 and 6, and the week after 4, 7, and the new book of the new trilogy. Till then, I'm James Phoenix. Until then, I'm James Phoenix. Marcus, hit the applause.